We'll call the meeting of the Minot City Council to order for today, January 7th, 2019. It is 5:30. This is the first of the big change to the earlier and more frequent city council meetings. So appreciate everyone making it here and realizing that there's also many people just judging by the number of views on the YouTube channel. So I appreciate the people that are also tuning in via social media. Please go ahead and, for those folks that are here, put your electronic devices on silent or on vibrate so we can keep the distractions to a minimum. Roll call, please.
Janser.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Pittner.
Here.
Padragula.
Here.
Straight.
Here.
Wolski.
Here.
Sitma.
Here. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Takes us to number 3 on our agenda. We have approval of minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Janser.
I'll move 3 and 4.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Janser and second by Alderman Pittner on approval of the minutes and bills and transfers and payroll. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Call the roll.
Janser.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Wolski.
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes. Motion is approved. That takes us to personal appearances. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to come forward and speak on any item that is not on our agenda for this evening. So if there is an item that somebody does want to discuss in person, you can come up to the podium and just please state your name and your address and talk into the microphone, and we'll be more than happy to take any item that's not on our agenda this evening. All right. Moving on, that takes us to number 6, a public hearing to deny Paul Nektia a city taxi driver's license.
This is a required public hearing based on the decision by the police chief to deny Paul Nikisha a City of Minot taxi driver's license. The recommendation is that the City Council uphold the decision to deny the license to Mr. Nikisha.
This is an opportunity for anyone to speak for or against the recommendation that is before us. If not, I would entertain a motion. Alderman Janser.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and affirm the denial by the police chief.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Janser, second by Alderman Olson. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Janser.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Wolski.
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes, motion is approved. Number 7 is a public hearing, special use permit exceeding the number of dogs and cats.
The applicant submitted a request for a special permit to exceed the number of allowed dogs per household, which is 4, combined dogs and cats. The applicants moved to Minot with 6 dogs and were unaware of the ordinance. They have stated that they will not replace any of the dogs as they age out and will be in compliance at some point in the not-too-distant future, as several of the dogs are older. The neighbors have all signed off on the agreement, with the permit being issued. It's recommended the approval of the special use permit to allow Kathleen Fleming and Angela Visor to exceed the number, or the allowed number, of cats and dogs at 409 12th Avenue Northeast.
Again, this is a public hearing. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak for or against the issue that is before us. Anyone at all? If not, I would take a motion. Alderman Straight.
Mayor Sitma, I'd close the public hearing and move to approve the agenda item.
Motion by Alderman Straight.
Second.
Second by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Straight.
Yes.
Wolski.
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes.
Janser.
No.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Quadrigula.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to number 8, the mayor's report. My report is a little bit shorter this week, although not too terribly much shorter. Going back to early December, and I will skip over some of the just generic meetings that were held with some of my different appointed committees. On December 4th, I did a radio interview with KHRT. I did MC also the Association of Builders Christmas event that was held on the 4th. On the 6th of December, I did attend along with a couple of different aldermen, Alderman Wolski and I think Alderman Straight, MSU business class, presenting some of their findings and ideas for downtown Minot. On December 7th, the radio interview with KCJB Radio. On the 7th of December, we did meet with the North Dakota Department of Transportation on their Vision Zero program. On December 8th, then, the Park and Rec merger meeting. Also on the 10th, yet another Park and Rec merger meeting that was held at the zoo, and that one was open for the public. On the 12th, we did have a meeting with BNSF officials talking about some of the proposals within the Enhanced Flood Protection Project. On the 15th, we did go downtown for the CP Holiday Train event that I firmly believe was probably one of the most well-attended events that CP has had down at on North Main Street since, at least in recent memory for me. I did attend the MSU Holiday Social Party on the 17th as well. I did also go on the 18th to the Roosevelt Elementary and had a very good long discussion with the CLC class and their ideas on what Minot should bring for the young people. Very creative ideas, by the way. We had the Mayor's Committee on Addiction on the 18th of December, and then on the 20th, another Park and Rec merger meeting. And following that were numerous individual meetings with individual people from Minot and discussions, mainly after the tax bills arrived right around Christmas time. So that is the extent of my meetings. I do have also appointments that are in front of you. Oh, that is an old one, never mind. So I don't have any appointments in front of you. I do want to remind, though, that we do have the Mayor's Challenge that is quickly coming to a close for the students out there for the state of the city. And my understanding is we've had quite a few submissions that came in today right after the holiday, so that's fantastic to see, and we're hoping to see many more before the deadline, which City Manager, help me remind me, when is the deadline? It is the 11th. Okay, so for any students that are out there to get those either art pieces, the literature, or the videos put together for the 11th, and you can find more on how to submit that on our website. With that, that is the extent of my report, and I would look to our city manager for his report for the month of December and January.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, Happy New Year. Welcome back to January and our first council meeting of the year. We'll run right into it with important dates for the upcoming month. Of course, as the mayor said, this is the first of 2 city council meetings for this month. The next city council meeting will be held on the 22nd, which is the 3rd Monday. Actually, this is a Tuesday because of the holiday, so it got pushed today, so it's the third Tuesday. But they're going to typically be, as you know, 1st and 3rd Mondays going forward, again at 5:30. Several other activities or meetings that are going on throughout the month include the Mayor's Committee on Addiction, which will be held on the 10th at 6:30 here in Council Chambers. There will be a big public meeting on the 31st Avenue Southeast roadway improvements. That will be held at John Hoven Elementary School on the 15th at 6:30 p.m. There's 2 International Economic Development Council stakeholder group meetings that have been scheduled for this month. I'll talk more about that later in the presentation, but they'll be held on the 16th and the 23rd in the auditorium room 301 at 6:30 p.m. Legislative forums are going to begin as they have in past sessions. That will be held at 9 a.m. on the 26th, which is a Saturday of January, and then every 2 weeks after that at the State Fair Center in the North Room for this first meeting. Planning Commission will remain as it has been last Monday, essentially, of the month, and so that'll be the 28th, 6:30 in Chambers here. So a couple other things that we have on the calendar. Probably the only other one really of note is Martin Luther King Day will be observed for the first time in our city's history, our Civil Rights Day for that matter, and so offices will be closed on the 21st of this month. Moving forward, wanted to share with you kind of what we've been up to over this last month or so, including a number of different activities that the staff and I have been involved in. We've been taking a look back at the accomplishment and execution rate of the accomplishments for the 2018 goals and reconciling those against what we set out to do at the beginning of the year. We hope to be able to provide a report to you. I'll probably email it to you here over the next 2 weeks or so, hopefully before the end of the month, to give you an idea as to how we performed over 2018. While that work is going on and we're generating that report, we're also working on development of 2019 goals. I'll talk a little bit more about that here a little bit later in the presentation. Other things that we've been working on the last month or six weeks or so is employee evaluations. Of course, the entire city staff workforce is evaluated all at the same time. This is a big lift, but it's also very, very good because it allows us to evaluate everybody on equal footing, and it puts us in alignment with goals that are set for the beginning of the year and our evaluation of those goals at the end of the year. We have 82% of all evaluations, that's 329 evaluations citywide that have been completed to date. And we estimate about 2 to 3 weeks to fully complete all the remainder of the evaluations. We are about 1 month ahead of schedule compared to where we were last year. And my hope is that by January 1st of every year going forward, we'll have 100% completion. So we're not too far off from that. But it is a big effort, but it's an important one nonetheless. We've also, as you know, been putting the finishing touches on our legislative position papers. This has been a big lift for us over the last month or so. We have our top priorities that have been identified. They've all been essentially put to paper now. They've been refined. You've had an opportunity to look at them. We've taken your comments as well as comments from the staff and others that we've received, and we've revised them, and we're putting the papers into a brochure, essentially, or a pamphlet that will be distributed to area legislators and other legislators throughout the state as issues arrive and important issues to Minot come up for discussion. We have in these legislative papers identified 8 topics that you essentially directed the staff to work up. And with those, we've also identified some metrics for the city that help legislators understand sort of what our demographics are, what our tax base is, what our property taxes are, our valuations, and other sorts of things. So that as they speak to issues, that they have a little bit more context about those demographics when speaking about Minot issues. One thing you should be aware of, we did not get this included in the legislative papers because it was a late-breaking development. But to paint the story for you, in early fall of 2018, the State Water Commission had included $100 million for our Minot flood control project. This had been the recommendation early on for continuing the state funding portion of Minot's flood control project. However, between that time and around December time or so, late fall, the estimates for the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Project came in, and of course that project had escalated in its cost. There's about $600 million more needed for that particular project. So of course the State Water Commission then revised its recommended budget, and unfortunately the City of Minot's flood control project, $30 million was taken out of the original preliminary budget and diverted to the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Project. Other buckets were additionally reduced so that $100 million in total could be added to the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Project. Of course, we're very concerned about this because it does impact our flood control project and the anticipated progress that we expected to make over the next biennium. So we must work hard and diligently with our local area legislators and those around the state to restore funding to Minot's flood control project. We are not only shovel ready, as you know, we have dirty shovels in the ground right now. We are well ahead of the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Project. And so we need to make sure that the progress and the momentum that we have on the project remains. One other aside is that the Southwest Water Tower project may also be at risk. This is the water tower project that was intending to serve the Trinity area, the new Trinity Hospital. That's because additional funds were removed from the municipal water infrastructure portion of the State Water Commission's budget, again, to make funds available for the Fargo-Moorhead Diversion Project. So we have to work on restoring that as well so we can keep that, that important water tower piece of infrastructure moving forward. So the 2019 legislative session looks like this. I won't go through all of this. This is kind of just general information that you know, but some important dates here. There is the mad scramble at the beginning of the session, which is kind of occurring now. As I've mentioned to many people before, the state legislature is poised to hear anywhere from 900 to 1,000 new bills this year. They have 80 days to get through all of that work. So it's going to be a lot of, as they always are, a lot of activity centered around the legislative process. Crossover is going to occur right around February 22nd or so, if I've got my date right. So that's an important date. And then, of course, it is an 80-day limit for the legislature, which puts us essentially nearing the end of the legislative process right near end of April or so. So we'll be paying attention, and many of the staff, including myself, and then also Mayor Sitma, and perhaps some of you may be called upon to go down to the legislature and testify on issues of importance for the city. As we look forward to this new year, there are a lot of activities that are kind of taking place, and some of those include just the adjustment of this meeting. As you know, moving to first and third or twice a month council meetings does reduce the number of council meetings by 33%, and it improves the approval processing time for all city business that would require council actions by 50%. So we are essentially becoming more efficient as an organization with this process. But that doesn't mean we're not without our growing pains, and so we'll need to make some adjustments along the way to ensure that we are putting the most important business in front of you and that that's what's getting discussed and moved forward under the agenda. I do want to emphasize, however, that despite the fact that we are reducing the number of meetings and improving the approval process times, that council will always have the right to slow processes down as they see fit in order to have the proper vetting and deliberation and debate that's needed for all issues to go forward. So holding issues, continuing issues, or tabling issues and the like are all options that you will always have available to you in order to take the time you need to move the important business of the city. However, recognizing in this first meeting that there was a compressed time frame for you folks to look at tonight's agenda, and I feel bad about that. It's one of the side effects, essentially, of changing processes. So we're going to learn from this. We are making an adjustment to the agenda setting process, and so I want to disclose that to you right now. 6 to 12 days prior to the Monday scheduled council meeting, agenda memos and materials will be developed. Staff will develop them anytime during that time period, even sooner than that if you or the staff would like. On Tuesday, 6 days prior to the Monday meeting, all agenda materials will be due to the city clerk by noon. We will have to hold a regimented schedule because the reason this month you got your agenda packets late is because we were waiting until Friday for a council memo and the supporting documentation before we wanted to send it out to you. We will no longer do that. We will have hard cutoffs, and if the staff or others can't get us the materials by the time frames we need, we're going to have to push that item to the next council meeting. The good news here is that that's only 2 weeks away instead of 30 days or a month away. So agendas will be due and materials will be due noon on Tuesday prior. The city clerk will use the afternoon of that Tuesday prior to assemble the agenda and put it all together. I will meet with the city clerk and we will go through the agenda and ensure everything's in order, and an approval will be made in the morning of Wednesday, 5 days prior to the meeting. And then the packet will be essentially published and distributed to the council and the public right around noon on Wednesday. Now, it might be 1 o'clock because of the lunch hour and that sort of thing, but that's going to be the goal. With this process, that will allow 5 full 24-hour periods, essentially 5 full days, for the council to review the packet, which I believe is going to be 1 more day than you have been previously used to. So if we can stick to this schedule, I feel confident that we can get you the materials that you need several days in advance. Keep in mind that we'll have 2 meetings per month, so we will be separating out the amount of workload and dividing it over those two different council meetings. So we do hope that we'll thin out the materials as we move along. So I just wanted to disclose that to you and let you know we're going to make that process improvement going forward. All right. Next, I wanted to let you know, since we are having 2 council meetings each month, that we're going to divide up what we bring to you as it relates to reports. So the first meeting, the first Monday meeting of the month, we'll have the mayor's report continue as usual, the city manager's report, and the city attorney's report all occur as usual, just like every other council meeting. But we're going to push the department reports to the second meeting. That way we don't have too much in that first meeting. And then the goal is with the departments that each department will be in front of you at least once per year. That's the goal. We're going to try to move the departments to move more strategically in the preparation and in the presentation of the materials that will be presented to you, so that you can kind of get a sense as to what their ongoing, issues and challenges are and what they're doing to overcome them in the future. So that will be the process that we're going to make adjustments on going forward. This, of course, is all separate of the budget process. The budget process is sort of its own animal, and we'll deal with those projects and those processes as we have in the past on different schedules. The department report schedule, just for information purposes, looks like this. You'll be getting an NDR report later this month. Then we'll do the library, then public works, the city assessor, and so on and so forth. So if you are interested in what department might be coming forward, this is generally the schedule. Now, sometimes department heads may need to make a shift if there's a vacation schedule or something opportunistic that's for them. They may adjust, and I'm allowing them to do that. So, this might not be the, the final schedule. It's just tentative at this point. For 2019, as I mentioned, we are developing our goals. And with these goals, we're incorporating, as we have before, SMART goals. And with that, we'll be focused on 5 general focus areas: our strategic efforts, our financial efforts, operations, employees, and customers. This has been something I've been reiterating ever since I joined the city. And so we'll continue that approach as we continue forward. One thing I'm going to be trying to do, as you know, we've made significant progress on the financial side of the operation and also on the employee front. So now we're going to be turning our attention this year more to strategic issues and opportunities. We're going to try to push the organization further by driving more specific performance in the operational areas and automating processes and those sorts of things. And we're also going to try to advance customer efforts, including customer service training, values and standards, and so on and so forth. So while we will have goals in all of these different areas, our focus for this year is really going to be on customers, operations, and strategy. So stay tuned throughout the year as we advance those initiatives going forward. That leads me to another City Council retreat. As you know, we had a successful retreat in the fall. Appreciate all of you being there and for your guidance and wisdom and the dialogue that we had. As you know, at that retreat, we weren't able to get to some of the strategic planning preliminary information. And so I'd like to do that at a council retreat sometime, maybe April or May. We're going to be pretty busy with the legislative session going on right now. The State of the City's coming up that we're certainly preparing for, the legislative papers. There's just a lot going on. So I don't feel like I can put the kind of time to a full council retreat until around April or May. So if you're okay with that, that would be my recommendation. Allow us to get a little bit further through the session. And of course, what happens during the legislative session may impact what we want to do strategically going forward. So I sort of feel like that makes sense as it relates to planning purposes. The IEDC report, I mentioned this at the start of the presentation. As you know, July through October of last year, we had the report published. We reviewed the report findings, developed and discussed the organizational structure, and then we identified technical teams that were going to start working on consolidating like issues, and addressing how to maybe overcome those issues. Between November and December, 6 technical teams were developed under the leadership and guidance of our project manager, Tim Mahalik. And I'm here to report that great work has been done on that front. All the technical teams essentially have developed these reports and have submitted them to the mayor and myself. Mr. Mahalik, the mayor, and myself met last month, and we've decided to continue with the process, which is why these 2 meetings are going to occur in January, these stakeholder group meetings. The agenda for these meetings looks like this. The January 16th meeting will have a welcome and introductions again. Project manager, Mr. Mahalik, will talk a little bit about the project overview and the progress to date with the technical teams. And then we'll have 4 of the 6 technical teams give their presentations. Probably around 20-minute presentations with about 10 to 15 minutes for questions. We want the entire community to be aware of and involved, if they'd like to, in the economic development process. The second meeting, which will occur 1 week later, will allow the last 2 technical teams to give their presentations, and then there'll be some group discussion, again, 10 to 15 minutes for that. And then we'll identify next steps, including what do we want to do going forward, implementation logistics, umbrella organizations, the city's role, the community's role. What exactly do we want to do at this point in time? So that will all be discussed at the second meeting, or at least that's what we anticipate. If there's quite a bit of dialogue, we may even need a 3rd meeting. We don't want to rush producing great results here, so we're open to that. But at least at this point, it gives you a sense of kind of what we're heading for here in the month of January. Next up, wanted to just let you know that we did conclude our 2nd attempt to fill the Community Development Director position. We have extended an offer to a candidate who was a strong candidate for us, and we are awaiting acceptance of that offer at this point in time. I was hopeful I might get that information before today's update, but you know, we just weren't able to get that. So I apologize. If the candidate accepts the offer, then I'll be able to announce fairly shortly who that person is after we get through the background checks and those sorts of things. So I would hope within the next week or 2 possibly. If the person doesn't accept the position, which is what happened to us the last time, then we'll have to re-advertise the position. The good news is, if that's the case, I've had several people reach out to me already and express interest as candidates from around the country, and also spring is a great time for us to recruit. So that's the update I have for you on the Community Development Director position. I wanted to just touch base with you on the zombie extraction activities that we have going on. As you know, the flood is 8 years ago, and about 3,500 to 4,000 homes were impacted by the flood. We are down to the last 30 zombie homes, which is a great milestone for our community. Of those 30, we have 4 willing sellers for purchase of those homes, and we have 2 others that are pulling permits for renovations. So that'll take us down to something like 26 blighted properties, which we will continue to work on to try to bring that number, smaller and smaller as we go. The Community Development Block Grant DR funds from Allocation 1 is what's being used to finance these activities. So we're grateful for that, and we're excited about continuing to make more progress in turning these homes and properties into more productive and attractive assets in our community. With that, I have an apology to issue. I need to apologize to our police chief, because when we had the service awards that we use to celebrate at the end of the year all of the employees' time with the city, we typically acknowledge all of those members of our workforce that are celebrating on the 5s, essentially the 5-year, the 10-year, the 15 and 20, and so on and so forth. And Chief Olson got missed, and I'm embarrassed by this because he's our police chief and he's the guy that you really need to be good to. But I'm more ashamed because I congratulated him the day of his 30th anniversary. I think it was April or May of last year. And so to blank during the ceremony, I feel just awful about. So I wanted to just bring him up and formally recognize him and appreciate him. He gets special treatment now because we forgot about him. But Chief Olson, thank you very much for being on our team. We're so grateful to have you with us. Thank you. Lisa John, our HR director. Well, thank you all for helping me get through that. That's a little embarrassing. All right. With that, lastly, I want to remind the City Council and the community that we have the State of the City event on January the 31st. It'll actually start around 4:15 to 4:30 with an open house style City Hall, and that was where we're going to have all of the department directors and their staff that need to be manning stations to talk with the community about different things that they do in their departments, kind of like what we did last year. The mayor will formally start his speech right around 5 o'clock. That will be when the official kickoff will begin. We anticipate that will run to close to 6 p.m., after which we'll have a community social also at the Magic City campus. So all of these events are at Magic City campus. We do hope that the community comes out. We're excited to hear from our mayor, and I'm excited to see all of you there. So with that, I'll stand for any questions that you might have.
Well, here's the good news, is there's quite a few different videos included in that, so it's not going to just be an hour of me speaking. So any questions for the city manager today? If not, thank you, sir.
Great, thank you all.
Number 8 on our agenda is, actually number 9 is our city attorney's report.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I submitted a written report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for our city attorney on her written report? If not, thank you, Kelly. To number 10, actionable items within our agenda this evening. Number 10.1 is the property tax abatement for 48-unit apartment complex at 3215 8th Street Northeast. If number 10.1, 10.2, and 10.3 look familiar to this body, these are the agenda items that we not only heard last month, but we also took action on last month. And all 3 were denied. They did go ahead and resubmit, actually through a different attorney group for the same property owner. And the county did inform for all 3 of these that essentially the action that was taken last month stands, and they do have the opportunity to go before the county. But per decorum and rules, we do have to have them in front of us one more time for our agenda, and I would be willing to take any comments from the public or from the folks that had submitted, or the property owner that had submitted for 10.1, 10.2, or 10.3. And just for reference, again, property tax abatement for the 48-unit apartment complex, 3215 8th Street Northwest, and the application for abatement or refund for taxes on 3241 8th Street Northeast, and the application for abatement or refund for the taxes on 3343 8th Street Northeast. City Assessor.
Mr. Mayor, you pretty much summed that up perfectly. We just need, would be my recommendation, to take these separately and a no vote.
Thank you, sir. I would be looking for a motion on each one of these individually. Alderman Walski.
Mr. Mayor, seeing no comments from the public further, I would move that we affirm the assessor's recommendation on the first actionable item, 3215 8th Street Northeast, and deny the requested abatement.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Walski, second by Alderman Olson. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Wolski?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Motion is approved. 10.2, an application for abatement or refund for taxes on 3241 8th Street Northeast. Alderman Straight.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we affirm the city assessor's recommendation and deny the abatement request.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Straight, and a second by Alderman Janser. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion is approved. 10.3, the application for abatement or refund of taxes for 3343 8th Street Northeast. Alderman Pittner.
Mayor, I would move that we uphold the assessor's recommendation to deny the requested abatement.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Pittner, second by Alderman Olson. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. This takes us to 10.4. This is a new abatement request, Menards 2016 abatement request on 101 28th Avenue Southeast. This is the main store. At this time, I think I would look to our city assessor for a little more information.
Mr. Mayor, the applicant indicated he wouldn't be able to be here. He did send a letter. He had sent some information for us to consider. This came in on the deadline for 2016 appeals. We looked at what he had sent us. It's our understanding that Menards has basically appealed all over the state. We simply have to recommend denial. We've looked at his numbers. They keep, these companies that represent the big box retailers keep bringing up sales that have happened going all the way back to 2008 in different states, stores that have closed for various reasons. And then when they look at those sales, they come up with this, what I would consider a really conservative to probably almost really low per square foot selling price. And in many cases, the comparable sales they're using from Illinois and Indiana, and we're going back almost 10 years, in no way compare to how our market is in western North Dakota. So the letter that was attached to all the information that you got that was attached from me indicates that the sales comparison, in my opinion, is very weak to almost useless. Then they've also used a cost approach, and that's basically what we rely on too for these types of properties. The letter from the applicant, from Menards, indicates that a building like this lasts 30 years. I would disagree with that. We have a Kmart that's going on 50 years. Is the Kmart building a tired building? Yes, but we believe that the building would go longer than 30 years with Menards. In addition, we think the depreciation goes at a lower rate. And so in my information that's been submitted, I will continue to submit that at the county level. So my summary on why we don't like their cost approach is they've ramped up their depreciation. They're trying to depreciate this building a lot faster than we think it depreciates. In addition to that, we think the building is in pretty good shape. In 2008, it was gone through with an added mezzanine and permits, and we've been watching that. They also seem to feel that there's some kind of economic obsolescence on these types of buildings, and that comes from a theory that I'll just come right out and say is what is in our industry is called the dark store theory. It's nationwide. Big box retailers are saying, yeah, we may have built this building for $20 million, but the day we move in, it's only worth $6 million or $8 million, because nobody wants a new Walmart building. They would build it different. Nobody wants a new Menards. And so assessors have been addressing this, have been looking at it. Our association has been writing white papers. We've been studying it. It's brought up at every conference we attend, and a lot of the dark store theory advocates are those people who are simply looking to get assessments cut on these buildings. And they have their opinions, and we have ours. And many times they leave out the fact that these buildings are, in fact, there is a demand for them, if not only for the main occupant, the person who built it. And so it just doesn't ring true that because something is built for $20 million, that all of a sudden now it's worth half that or a quarter of that. The real estate industry has not come to grips with some of this, but in their cost approach, the reason I bring this up is they're asking for a bunch of economic obsolescence because nobody wants a Menards building, this, that, and the other. Well, we know there is a demand yet for these types of buildings. Home of Economy built a new one. Kohl's has been rebuilt. And don't forget about Home Depot. So there is a demand for these types of buildings. Whether somebody would buy this and re-sign it or paint it, that's all possible. But the long answer to the short answer is we are recommending denial on this abatement. For not only we think they've ramped up their depreciation too fast, number two, the whole application process doesn't make any sense to me. They filled out an application for Parcel 1, which is the store. They also filled out an application for Parcel 2, and that's how I'll refer to them, which is the storage building. If you've ever done any business there, they have a three-sided building that you drive through. And what the applicant it seems like he's attempted to do is he's combined our values, which is about $16 million for the pair, and he wants it to be down around $10 million. But it's not clear to me how he wanted that broken out. So I have a question with even just the form as to how he's asked for his abatement. Finally, I would just mention that what we try to do is we're always looking for not only what is that building worth, what is that property worth that somebody is filing an abatement on. We have this number, they want it at this number. But we usually try to stack those up with, well, how does that compare with everything else? So I've taken all the other big box stores, and for instance, the Home of Economy building, which is granted about a little less than half the size of Menards, is assessed at $124 a square foot. Home Depot's at $121. Kohl's is at $114. Super Walmart $83. Hobby Lobby $82. And you'll notice that the rates drop off as the buildings got older. But Menards is already at almost the lowest assessment per square foot for 2016 at $70. And their request would put them at $53, not counting the garden area on the attachment to the Menards store. And so what they're asking for is basically to be assessed at less than a 50-year-old Kmart building. We just simply have to disagree with their analysis, and so we would recommend denial on the Menards store proper for that agenda item.
Any questions for Mr. Ternus? Alderman Patagula.
Actually, two comments. The first comment is Kevin spoke about how these stores have viability and reuse potential, and I think the best example I'm aware of is the North Hill Kmart, which became the MLT or whatever it is now, large office facility. So just a few blocks from my home, there's a facility like that. So these can be repurposed quite easily. The second comment I'd make is that this morning there was an excellent article, a very lengthy article, and detailed article about this in the New York Times, and I sent a copy of it to Kevin. Maybe he can forward a copy on to all of us about this very issue. And it seems like it's a national strategy, a deliberate business strategy by owners of these large stores nationally to try to get the lowest possible rates in terms of assessments. And it seems like a deliberate, premeditated, if it saves them money, I guess that's what they want to do. And it gave me a very a different perspective and a broader perspective than I think Kevin gives us, which and having spent the time that I have with the assessors, I feel very comfortable with what they're telling us and very confident of their numbers and their method. But I think this independent outside perspective from this news report made me feel even more strongly about the merits of what our assessors are telling us.
Any questions or further comment? Yes.
So first of all, just
Could
because
you
it's in the-
state your
yes,
name and
of
address,
course.
please? And
My
talk
name
into-
is Terpsy Hori Maris Lindemann. I'm a resident here in Minot, and obviously Menards isn't here, but I've been following all of these abatements, both on personal property and on commercial, and it's imperative that someone speak up. Now, first of all, just because something's in the news doesn't mean it's true, okay? Because everybody can write anything, especially the New York Times, and they've proven that. Regardless, moving along, the assessment that I see that we have done on Menards is extremely unfair. And if you look at it, you know, you're quoting Home Depot, $121 per square foot, big box, yeah, we want to get it to the big guy. But the bottom line is these guys provide us jobs. And $121 per square foot for Home Depot is child's play. Because if you look on the national market, their average is $150 to $160 per square foot. So they don't mind overpaying in North Dakota. Because basically every single business, even our apartment owners here, are overpaying. We have them, we're asphyxiating our economy. Our taxes are rising, none of you are fixing it. You're all coming up with, we're handed this, when the majority of you have been recycled, upcycled, downcycled, whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is you are asphyxiating. Menards wants to leave from what he was saying so people can understand the language in between. No one wants to buy that property. Look at Sears, it's been sitting there. No one's gonna buy it because nobody wants to do business here, because we're asphyxiating the economy from the consumer to the commercial. And for that reason, today I thought I'd let you know that we've created a committee and we will initiate recall processes, because things like this is what kills economies. You have to be fair, and you have to know that our economy is not thriving. No magic fund, and you know, tell the people how the money that you say we have are all bonds. They're loans. And there's a handful of banks making money off of our taxes. Ask the one that's over 65 that has to sign off and be threatened with state recovery to get assistance to cover property tax. It's unbelievable. And for you guys to just sit there and say, well, this is all we can do, it obviously, I waited 6 months just to prove the point that none of you have any idea what you're doing. And you know, with a recall, we can actually ask for federal assistance because our city is in a state of emergency. We have zero money, you guys are spending money, and you're also killing the businesses and the people that have properties. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I do want to make one small correction. City Assessor did not indicate that Menards wants to leave.
Excuse me? You did what?
City Assessor did not indicate that Menards wants to leave Minot.
Oh, well, Menard said that they can't sell their no one wants to buy it. What does that tell you? This is translation. This is adult.
If you're going to speak,
That's okay.
ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion. Alderman Janser.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we affirm the recommendation of the city assessor and deny this request for an abatement for 2016 on the Menards property.
Second that.
Motion by Alderman Janser, second by Alderman Padrugula. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padrigula,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes. Motion is approved. That takes us to 10.5, Menards 2016 abatement request on 104 28th Avenue Southeast. This is the drive-through lumber storage structure that Mr. Turnus had spoke about. They're requesting a 2006 true and full value for the drive-through storage structure be reduced from the total of $3,164,000 to $2,382,400. Again, for the 104 28th Avenue Southeast section.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Turnus.
we looked at this one individually. We didn't get basically any information on this. They're kind of rolling this into the main store, and I realize they complement each other, and they probably should be all one parcel, but that's not how Menards developed them. Menards has these two separate parcels, and I imagine it could have something to do with the right-of-way in the middle and all that. But they added on to this three-walled building some time ago, and even what they spent to add on to it was a whole lot more per square foot than what we have on it. We would just simply have to say we believe that our assessment represents market value on this structure based on all the information we have. I would also reiterate that we track all the sales in Minot, and as all the assessors do in North Dakota. And along with the houses that sold last year, they all sold for a little bit more than the assessment on average, and same with the commercial properties. We had about 30 commercial sales last year in 2018, and on the average, they sold for more than the average assessment. So we believe our models are calibrated properly. We will do some more calibration for the 2019 assessments. You'll be part of that in April. But for this one, we really didn't hardly get any information on this one. It was rolled in with the other request, and so we're going with our model, which has not failed us so far. So we would recommend denial.
Any questions for City Assessor?
I would add that this building appears, they appear to build these differently from town to town, and some are bigger, some are smaller. This is one of the bigger ones from what I can tell in North Dakota. So.
Thank you, Mr. Furness. Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move to affirm the staff recommendation, the assessor's recommendation, and deny the abatement for the property.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Pittner, second by Alderman Straight. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to our next section, which is administrative approvals.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Wolski,
Second.
second by Alderman Olson. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Motion is approved. And I would perhaps maybe step out of our regular process here, as these are just approvals unless for the next 10.7, 10.8, 10.9, 10.10, I believe, and 10.11 are just agreements. I would entertain a motion for consent on the following unless an individual item needs to be pulled. Alderman Straight.
Mr. Mayor, I'll take your recommendation and move consent agenda. However, I have an administrative amendment on 10.11, sir, in terms of you do not have to authorize the agreement, sir. The airport director needs to.
Okay. I think we can move that within within the consent on 10.6, 10.7, 10.8, 10.9, 10.10, and 10.11 with the short amendment on the authorization for signature on 10.11-1.
Second.
Second by Alderman Olson. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to number 10.12, the expansion of the service area for liquor licenses at the airport. The restaurant within the airport has expressed the desire to expand the service area for their beverages at the Minot International Airport. The expanded area will include the entire gate area in addition to areas currently served. Commercial airports around the state provide the similar service areas as their respective facilities.
Move approval.
Second.
Approval, motion of approval by Alderman Olson, second by Alderman Straight. Discussion on the motion. Alderman Straight.
Mr. Mayor, I guess just thinking back to our airport director's report that was sent last month, there's been a bit of a dip in revenue from the restaurant there, and I think this is a way for them to be much like other airports around the state, and it seems like it's a no-brainer. So.
Alderman Padragula.
Yeah, I really don't have an objection to this, but I think it's something we should stop and think about for a little bit. I talked with the airport staff this morning, and it seems the primary problem is that there's not enough room for people to sit and enjoy things. I don't have an objection to it, but I think we should, like I say, stop and think about it. I think the one issue that concerns me is that, people may get rowdy and stuff, but it is a controlled environment. You have to pass through a security screening, so I think that shouldn't be that much of a problem. But I think, there are people in the community who aren't comfortable with consumption of alcohol in public places, and we're going to be opening it up to a very large part of the airport building. There'll be kids climbing around, things like that. And I think that some people might not feel comfortable with that. I think part of the issue, too, is that it would be impossible, essentially, to prohibit or to control sales of or consumption of alcohol by minors because there's no segregation of a drinking versus a non-drinking area. And I know in the past we've often had significant discussions about having to, establishments having to have fences of certain heights, 4 feet versus 6 feet, to make sure that nobody passes a beer to a kid standing outside. Maybe times have changed since then, but, like I say, I have no objection to it, but I think we need to monitor this rather carefully. And, it kind of undermines some of the other efforts we've been making in the past to control access to places where people drink. Again, maybe we don't need to be as fastidious anymore, but I think that, again, is a major, major opening up of things.
Thank you, Alderman Potegula. Alderman Walski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the comments of both Alderman Straight and Alderman Potegula. I'm going to support this tonight. I think, maybe there's a bit of a template for us to keep an eye on because I think we are seeing, I think, a general trend towards maybe a relaxing of our past regulation of alcohol, liquor, beer, all of those particular things. A lot of the comments I've heard over the last year from folks is people want environments where they can partake of a beer sitting amongst their children. So maybe this in a fairly restricted setting is a place where we can see if responsible behavior wins the day, and if not, that maybe there's something to learn from decisions we may have to look at in the future. So.
Thank you, Alderman Walski, and I can't think of a more controlled environment where you have to watch your bags at all times than this anyway. So, Alderman Potegula.
Maybe the availability of alcohol won't be such a bad thing, given how stressful flying is these days. And if you have a bunch of kids you're trying to herd onto the airplane and keep occupied, maybe that will help everybody out. But I think Josh is right on that. I think we're loosening things up, but it's just kind of ironic. I remember times when we would have pretty stringent rules that had to be 6 feet tall. Fence, and now there's no fence at all. And again, I think in that environment, I think people will be watched fairly carefully. The airlines don't have to or can't let anybody aboard who's intoxicated. I'd feel a little bit more comfortable, I guess, if we had a police officer in the terminal when planes are coming in and out. But there are at least the TSA people, and there are procedures in place to contact law enforcement. So I have no objection to it. Again, I just wanted to put a pause in this process.
Any further discussion? Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Potegula?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Walski?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to 10:13, the budget amendment, the compost site cameras. Over the past couple of years, the sanitation department has been adding cameras to the city compost collection sites. It does help in the drivers prioritizing the bins that are full and has made our compost collection much more efficient.
Mayor, I'll move the item.
Motion
Second.
by Alderman Janser, second by Alderman Olson. Discussion on the motion. Alderman Potegula.
I like this idea, and in talking with public works staff, it seems like it has made a major improvement in terms of our efficiency. The only thing that concerns me is I was not aware, because I was not on the council apparently at the time, when these cameras were placed. And it's kind of an eerie feeling to know that you're being watched. At one point, a couple of years ago, I called the number to say that the bin was overflowing, and the gentleman I spoke with said he was in Williston, and he was aware of that. He could see it. And I kind of wondered, how can he do this? And I looked, and there was a pole with some equipment, and I kind of figured out pretty soon it was a camera there. I guess the only concern I have is about the privacy issue, and I have no problem with that. I think it's an excellent idea to have these monitored, but I'd like to see us put a sign by each of these. I think there were 7 of the 10 that are or will have cameras. A very polite sign saying that the area is monitored by video for, improving the service that we offer, making sure that the bins don't overflow. But I think alerting people. I think there's a difference here between, a place like London, England, where there are cameras in every street corner. Everybody knows that they're being watched constantly. In other cities, you go to Times Square, cameras all over the place. This is Minot, North Dakota. We don't have that many cameras monitoring people in the street. And I think we owe it to people to give them some notice that, I don't want to say this, but Big Brother is watching, that the city is watching, the government is watching you. It's a small step, but I'm concerned that this step gets larger. And I think we start at some point having significant privacy and civil liberties issues. I know in Fargo they have cameras that monitor people speeding through red lights downtown. And it sounds like that's a very important, desirable thing because people can get killed. But I think at this point, where there's not a whole lot on the plus side, except getting the compost picked up on time or picked up before it overflows, where I think there is a significant risk. We are scrutinizing, we are monitoring. I don't know if we're recording. And it's also, many of these are in play areas or in park areas where people are recreating. I think it would be an appropriate thing to give people fair notice that this area is being watched. Many stores, when you go into them, have a sign saying area under video surveillance or something like that. Again, since this is a very rare practice in Minot, and the government is doing it, I would like to see us notify people.
Alderman Janser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect to Alderman Prodigula's comments, I have a slightly different view of this. I guess, working for a company that does a lot of video surveillance installations, I would tell you that if you're outside in any kind of quasi-commercial area, there's a really high chance that you're on video. So, whatever you're going to do, it's probably being recorded by somebody or seen by somebody. And it might just be that the guy in Williston has an app, if it's on his house, that he can pull that in and see what you're doing. So I think this is something that has become ubiquitous in our world, and even in Minot, whether people are aware of it or not. Many times, something happens and law enforcement is assisted because they're able to go to somebody who has good video surveillance and see exactly what happened. And so I think it's a positive thing. I think the idea of citizens feeling like they're being spied upon because of that technology is probably passé if they're not in their own private area.
Further discussion. Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Sitma, thanks. I appreciate both the perspectives that have been offered on the privacy issue on this. I have a question, I think, likely for our Public Works Director or Mr. Sorensen, whoever is probably most directly connected to this operation. One of the comments that I've taken at least a couple times in my time serving on council is concerns about improper dumping and things being left at these sites that is not what we're there for, not what we're doing. Is that a significant issue that we're dealing with, or is that the exception in these cases? I'm just curious, Jason, on your perspective.
Mayor Sitma, Alderman Wolski, that's probably a secondary benefit to having the cameras. It helps us identify some of those. I guess one of the issues we have is high-def cameras require a lot of bandwidth, so we don't have most of them ramped up to high definition, so you can't necessarily get like a license plate number or anything like that. But we've definitely had some vehicles that have had clear vehicle markings where they're definitely identifiable, and we've had PD give them a call or pay them a visit and ask them to stop doing what they're doing.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that secondary benefit of this. There was one circumstance last fall where somebody had left a refrigerator sitting in front of one of these, and people, dutifully marched around that, but it was obstructing one of those walk-up ramps, which are a really convenient added piece for these locations. And I know many citizens, they use those sites, they appreciate those sites. And I think it does reflect poorly when we have individuals in the community that are kind of abusing the service that we provide. So I think the signage might be an added deterrent. So I'm not opposed to that being considered in the future, but ultimately I support the motion tonight.
Alderman Potter-Gula.
I think in view of what Alderman Janser said, I am vehemently opposed to that position. And I think as a matter of conscience, actually, because of the civil liberties implications, I would like to introduce an amendment to this motion that we direct the staff to put up signage saying that people under video surveillance. I don't oppose the idea of cameras at all, but I feel very strongly if people are being scrutinized by government, that that's something people need to know about, and we should be open about that.
I would second.
Second by Alderman Wolski. The amendment to the motion is to add signage on that. Alderman Straight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess to follow up on Alderman Potter-Gula's point, I find myself, Stephen, becoming increasingly, I want to be militant. I would like to see the camera go up on the nearest light pole, so if somebody is dumping illegally, we talk about wish cycling. I want to wish and believe that it's going to get recycled. The amount of times I've been to these facilities and seen large trees, contractors abusing the system, as somebody who's given a lot of free time to cleaning up trash around our community, I'm increasingly wanting to go after them.
I agree.
Because there are a lot of people that, and if there's a fine line there, I can appreciate the discussion about civil liberties, but I think if a lot of residents might not follow the rule of law, and this is a service that I think, I talked to somebody today who said, yeah, periodically I like to swing by and throw in my fish guts. I'm like, really? That's pathetic.
I like the idea, just to be clear, I like the idea of surveillance. I just think people should know about it, that's all.
Yeah, so that's.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Discussion on the amendment. The amendment is again to add signage that the area is under surveillance. Call the roll.
Potter-Gula.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Wolski.
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes.
Janser.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
The amendment passes. Back to the original budget amendment, compost site cameras motion. Further discussion on the motion as amended. Further discussion. Please call the roll.
Janser.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Potter-Gula.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Wolski.
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes, motion is approved. Takes us to 10.14, the engineering study at the intersection of 12th Street Southwest and 17th Avenue Southwest. An investigation was recently completed regarding motorist safety at the yield-controlled intersection of 12th Street Southwest and 17th Avenue Southwest. The engineering study consisted of applying the AASHTO's guidelines for the intersection's site triangles. Actual conditions at the intersections do not meet those site distance recommendations for a yield-controlled intersection. The use of a stop sign instead of a yield sign should be considered.
Move approval.
Motion of approval by Alderman Olson, second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion on the motion. Further discussion. Please call the roll.
Olson.
Yes.
Pittner.
Yes.
Potter-Gula.
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Wolski.
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes.
Janser.
Yes.
Motion is approved. 10:15, the engineering study at the intersection of 6th Street Southwest and 18th Avenue Southwest. It is recommended the City Council pass an ordinance on first reading modifying the 6th Street Southwest approach to stop control at the intersection of 18th Avenue Southwest.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Janser,
Second.
second by Alderman Olson. Alderman Padragula.
Just wanted to point out I had a very productive discussion this morning with our new city traffic engineer, and I was very impressed by the analysis of and the data we had regarding this intersection. He informed me that it came from the state, which is really neat. So we're getting our tax dollars worth from them. But the thing that that I wanted to kind of share with you is that, and I don't know to what extent we're doing this, but because there's been a change of engineers, but to me it would be interesting to see, to maybe be a little bit proactive or less reactive to apparently dangerous intersections. It turns out in this intersection, or I guess it was the previous item, a resident complained to Mr. Janser about the situation. There was significant analysis and talking and everything. And it seems if the state is capable of giving us very, very detailed data about crashes and things like that, that we should be using that to kind of figure out where the high-risk intersections are. And I'm not aware that we're doing this. If we are, great. If not, and it doesn't sound like it'd be very difficult for the state just to give us a list of the top 10 or top 20. Occasionally we may miss things. Now, between people's complaints to aldermen, between the expertise of our engineering staff, I think we're going to find most of these. But I was really impressed by how quickly the state could come up with this data. The other thing I'm thinking, too, is that there are intersections where there's significant changes. If there's a double or tripling or whatever or of accidents, I think this is a very good management tool, and I think it fits in with what the city manager has been encouraging us to do, and we've been encouraging him to do, is to become more data-based for the city. Again, maybe it's already happening, but it really was brought to my attention with this particular item, and I was very impressed with that and want to see more of it happen.
Thank you, Alderman Padragula. Any further discussion on the motion? Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula,
Yes.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma.
Yes. Motion is approved. 1016, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. No, I'm not. 1016, the amend the contract for the Fire Department Station 3 remodel. It was recommended to the City Council approve the amended contract with EAPC for the Fire Station 3 remodel that reflects the changes necessary to comply with the federal guidelines within the City of Minot procurement checklist and authorize the mayor to sign the amended contract.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Straight.
Second.
Second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion on the motion. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Straight,
Yes.
Wolski,
Yes.
Sitma,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Motion approved. 1017, the USGS Water Monitoring Agreement 2019. It is recommended approval of standard joint funding agreement with the USGS for the operation of 2 water quality gauges on the Souris River and authorize the mayor and public works director to sign the agreement.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Wolski.
Second.
Second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion on the motion. Alderman Wolski.
Mayor Sitma, thank you. Just a brief comment here. I support this item. You know, the more information we can have about what's going on the river, I think is a benefit to not only the citizens of Minot, but the larger region as well. And I think that's, you know, where my comment sort of stems from a little bit is once again, I see us stepping up and providing funding for what I think is very much a regional service that's being, and benefit that's being provided by this. I'm going to support continuing to do it, but I think as our larger financial picture gets ironed out, I'm wondering if funding for these types of services might be better, more fairly or equitably brought from another source at some point. You know, in looking over this particular item, I did see that the funding comes from the water plant part of our budget, which is a service-based revenue, and it is very much a regional service-based revenue source. So I think we're not doing too bad on this one, but I just wanted to kind of highlight that as we start thinking about these things.
Thank you, Alderman Wolski. And just to point out to the significance of these water monitoring sites from 2011 and just how important they were to the accuracy to the 10th of a foot when it came to forecasting in 2011 on projected flood elevations throughout that entire year. So very much in support of the motion. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Wolski?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Motion is approved. 1018, Ward County Hazard Mitigation Plan Annual Progress Report. It is recommended the City Council receive and file the Hazard Mitigation Plan's Annual Progress Report and authorize the mayor to sign the CRS Annual Recertification Form.
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Olson.
Second.
Second by Alderman Straight. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Straight.
Yes.
Wolski?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion is approved. 1019, this is the Maple Diversion Feasibility Study Chief's Report. In May 2016, the SRJB entered into the agreement with the USACA for the feasibility study that was determined to take 3 years and approximately $3 million. The feasibility study was determined that if the federal government interest in any portion of the flood enhanced protection project, it's recommended the concurrence and approval of the draft chief's report for the feasibility study identifying the Maple Diversion MI4 as the portion of the flood control project with the federal interest.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Wolski, second by Alderman Straight. Discussion. Alderman Wolski.
I'll share some brief comments here, Mayor. Thank you. Dan, Ryan, good work. This was 3 years in the making, and at the end of it, we have a federally approved project here, pretty significant milestone, with the hope of an appropriation coming as soon as we can get the politics in Washington sorted out. But a $56 million federal partner, a very big deal, and a very significant milestone, I think, for this project, and it came in ahead of schedule. So another. Well done, I would say. There was one part of this document that got my attention, in particular, beyond the $56 million, was the $457,000 estimated a year by the Corps for operation, maintenance, repair, replacement, and rehabilitation. That's the annual number that this project is expected to cost the region, the city, all of those who are putting this up. And so we now have that sort of in a concrete form for us to look at, and I think we need to start acknowledging that as these strategic and financial discussions looking into the future start to take shape. The planning for what we want inside of those flood levees and walls. There are some green space issues. We've got a lot of folks from the Park District here tonight to talk about quality of life, I think. So I don't know, that's a first number, but it's a significant one. I think we need to start acknowledging it and be preparing for our future where that's an added expense.
Further discussion. Alderman Padragula.
Yes, I wanted to compliment Alderman Wolski for bringing this up again and again and probably again. That's one of the changes I've seen in my years on the council, is that in the past we rarely, if ever, would think about the lifespan maintenance costs of these things. And these are significant. For this one particular portion, we're talking $500,000 a year. And I'm really delighted, I'm really pleased, gratified that you're bringing this up, forcing us to pay attention to and informing the public. And I'm also glad to see that the city manager is, I think, very much in tune with this, in sync with this notion of us having to plan. That's the way we need to be in terms of using our money. We need to be prudent. We need to know what those anticipated expenses are going to be and plan for them and look at how we're going to cover them. This is the way government should be. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, Josh.
Thank you, Alderman Padragula. Alderman Straight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to actually commend the Sewer Server Joint Board that Dan and Ryan both spend a great deal of time working on for us. I think over the last week's meeting, it was eye-opening to me to see the work, and there's contentious issues that go in there, and I commend them in particular because what we saw earlier tonight with the reduction, the initial dollars for projects this year because of the FM diversion. The FM diversion is $600 million more because of legalities and lawsuits, and because of Dan Ryan and keeping that project moving forward. Those of us on the east side of town, they're trying to thread an incredibly fine line, and it's it doesn't go, I'm sure, without a lot of unbelievable stress, because we've been at those meetings and there's contentious rural issues that play in. But I commend the Serious River Joint Board for continually moving the thing forward, because it is a huge, heavy lift. So thank you, man. Thank you.
And I'll second that. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Wolski?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Quadrigula?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Motion is approved. That takes us to 1020. The Cardiac Ready Community Support Letter is recommended the City Council pass a motion approving a letter of support for the Cardiac Ready Community Program here in Minot.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Janser. I'm going to give him this one. Second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion. Alderman Janser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Kutch communicated to me that he would like this, Trinity would like this letter of support. This is a program to identify or to qualify Minot as a cardiac-ready community. And, you know, essentially what that means in quick summary is that we as leaders and other leaders in the community are able to respond if something happens, like somebody has a heart attack, because we've been trained and we know what to do. And so it's a very worthwhile effort. This has been undertaken by Trinity, and Chief Kelly has been part of that beginning effort. And so we already have city representation as part of that group. I know there's some people from Trinity here tonight. I don't know if you would like to say anything, but I'm getting the thumbs up sign that we're on the right track. So I would just ask for your support for this. We are not being asked for money. We're simply being asked for moral support and a willingness to participate in the training when it's offered, so that, you know, we can be ready if sort of something bad happens for somebody. So thank you.
And we've certainly seen the good that is done even within our firefighters and some of the awards and recognitions that we've had on the city level. Absolutely. Further discussion on the motion? Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson? Yes. Pittner?
Yes.
Quadrigula?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wolski?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes. Motion is approved. 1021, the Ward County Emergency Operations Plan. It is recommended to the City Council adopt the Ward County Emergency Operations Plan that was attached in our packets.
Move approval.
Second.
Approval by Alderman Olson, second by Alderman Straight. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Olson? Yes. Pittner?
Yes.
Quadrigula?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wolski?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Motion is approved. 1022, the Parks and Recreation merger. July 2018, the City Council appointed a committee to formally discuss the merging of the Recreation Department and the Park District to bring a recommendation to the City Council. After many meetings, the committee would like direction from the council on how to proceed, and I believe we have Park Director Ron Merritt with us this evening for a bit of information and presentation. Good evening, Mr. Merritt.
Mayor Sitma, members of the council, my name is Ron Merritt. I'm the executive director of the Minot Park District. I'm also a member of the committee that Mayor Sitma formed, along with many of you in this room. I'm here to present a presentation that some of you have seen, so I will go through it fairly quickly. But this presentation was reviewed by the committee, the mayor's committee, was also presented at a public forum last month for our citizens to comment on. So I'm going to present it to you guys, and then I'll be happy to answer questions. So, mission of the Minot Park District, and as we go through here, the bullet points that are on this presentation were also discussed by the committee and recommended as items that we needed to address. as we're looking at this merger. So mission of the Minot Park District to provide a broad-based opportunities for citizens of Minot and its visitors to enhance their quality of life through its parks and recreation facilities. So that is one of our that's our main mission, is to provide quality of life facilities, amenities, and events, and you name it. Vision, we will look to the future and plan well. Invest tax dollars wisely through prioritized action and strategic investment. Use technology, measurement, and communication to get results. Goals. The goals were set by the committee, by the mayor, who heads the committee. The goal was to have one board, one leadership team, one staff team focused on parks and recreation, providing quality of life for the citizens of the city of Minot. So then we went through objectives of our committee to combine the recreation department of the city of Minot with the Minot Park District. To start the transition on or around January 1st, 2019 was our initial goal, and we are fairly close to moving, in that direction. So we're not too far off on the timeline, if agreeable by everyone. To have an agreement in place between the city of Minot and the Park District for transfer or lease of properties, equipment, anything necessary for the operation of a recreation program. To have an agreement in place for funding of a recreation program, and to establish a transfer of staff that leaves them whole in salaries and benefits. And through this whole process, through the several months, we feel like we have been able to address most of these, or are in the position to move ahead with the ones that are remaining. So one of the major goals from our standpoint, and kind of how we see this moving forward, to develop a comprehensive recreation plan with input from our citizens for our entire city, and several objectives to provide opportunities for all ages, sexes, interests, gather community input through various means to see what our citizens would like us to provide. We are working on a planning process right now with the Minot Park District. I know you guys are doing strategic planning. We want to, with the blessing of this group, hopefully tonight, we want to move ahead and ask for input during our planning process to also include the recreation programming as a component of our planning. Provide programs that challenge participant, opportunities for non-competitive as well as competitive. So looking at programs, not just athletic programs, but arts and other, to include everyone. Balanced program offerings between indoor and outdoor. Community-wide events as well as activities conducted at neighborhood locations. Offer individual opportunities as well as mass activities. Encourage community participation. Helping to develop the programs, utilizing volunteer leaders, encourage community awareness of program offerings, develop an awareness of all recreational opportunities in order to complement rather than duplicate programs of other agencies. Customer service is a big thing. We feel that by combining our teams together, we'll be able to provide even better customer service than is already. Park District prides itself on customer service. We're not perfect, obviously, but if we make a mistake, we try and own up to it, correct it, and move on. And we want everybody to leave knowing that either they're happy or that we did our best to try and make them happy. So we feel like that's a really high, a big issue that we want to look at and just try and make things better by combining our forces. Customer experience is a big deal. We offer experiences to our customers, and several examples, feeding a giraffe at the zoo, hitting a home run at Corbett Field if you're in a baseball team, concert at Oak Park. Our goal is to provide the best customer experience you can. We don't take that for granted, and it's a lot of hard work to do that, but we feel like combining our forces will enhance that experience for our customers. Cost. This is an issue that we're aware that the rec department doesn't charge for some of the programs that it offers, especially for youth programming. They also do charge for adult programming at a higher rate than probably is necessary to recover the cost of the program. So the adults are offsetting the youth programs. We would continue forward with that, but we would not say that we're not going to have a fee for programs moving forward for new programs that are created. We're going to look at a cost recovery model and follow the same idea that adults would pay a little bit more to offset the youth programs. But we would also look at setting up a scholarship program. There are readily available grants, and we can solicit donations to make sure that everyone can participate. No one is going to go without participating in a program because of the fee. So we will make sure that that happens, and that will be a high priority of ours. Quality of life to our citizens, quality facilities. This is something that is really big with us, and we feel like by combining forces we can continue to make that even better. Strategic planning, definitely if we're doing that together, we feel like that's a huge benefit to our community instead of doing it as two separate entities. So we feel like the quality is something that we can improve on by combining. And we would also plan to develop a method to measure the success of the programs that are created. Accessibility. Strive to provide accessibility to people of all ages and abilities. This is an area that we definitely think we can improve on. We're making strides in this area. We have some very good facilities and some good things going, but we definitely think we can get better in this area. And working together with the programming and the facility needs together, we think we can make some big improvements in this area. Economic impact. So this is a study that was done nationwide about 5 years ago, due to be looked at again, but the park and recreation agencies across the United States have about $140 billion economic impact on our nation, which is a huge number, nearly 1 million jobs. We feel like locally we can make a bigger impact on our community by combining our forces and working together to bring in tournaments and use our facilities to their highest potential. Looking at locally, about the same time frame, a study was completed by NDSU here locally and across our state at park and recreation facilities, and you can see some of the numbers here that were presented by the study group. And this study, we don't feel gave us a really fair shot. The numbers that we looked at were during the year of the flood, so we feel like these numbers would be even greater, and we're probably about ready to do this study over again and renew our numbers. So we definitely hope for these numbers to be higher. But the whole idea here is that we do have an impact on our community, an economic impact. People are coming here for tournaments, they're spending money, staying in motels, benefiting businesses that are here. So the money invested in parks and recreation in some way comes back to our community again in this way. Benefit of a park district. We're one of 2 states that has park districts. There are other special districts in other states, but commonly in the state of Illinois and North Dakota, park districts are common. Parks and recreation programs are offered under park districts, so it's a separate taxing authority. So in North Dakota, we're a political subdivision, just like a city or a school with, maybe different rules, but fairly much treated the same. So we have the ability to levy taxes independent of the other political organizations. We feel that's a benefit to our community in the way that the funding source kind of stays steady and we're not competing directly. Indirectly we are. I mean, there's pressure on taxes, there's no doubt about it, so we can't go out of control. But when we look at parks and recreation, and as we're levying our taxes and the board is making decisions on where the money gets spent, we're not directly competing with the city, with the public works and with the engineering and the fire and police department. So in that way, we can keep a steady stream of funds for parks and recreation and not take away from what you guys need as a city. So nationwide, when the economy was at its lowest a few years ago, the recreation budgets that were operated by cities were one of the first to be lowered. In North Dakota, budgets stayed stable due to them being a separate taxing entity. So it wasn't as much of a hit in North Dakota as it was in other areas. School demographics, and this is just something for us for future planning. Right now, and these numbers came from Dr. Vollmer, 722 kids enrolled in kindergarten, and I know that number changes weekly and monthly, but that's a huge number. 488 seniors graduating this year from Minot Public Schools, so those are our existing and future customers. So just reiterating the fact of us working on our planning together and planning for the future growth of some of the programs that we know is coming down the road. We feel it's really important for us to be working together. Customer experience, and like I mentioned before, One-stop shop is a really big deal. We're working now on software that, and we have been working on this, as has the Recreation Department for a while now, but online registration for activities is really huge. And for us to make it easier for our customers to spend their money, but also to find out information on programs, what's available, for them to have one place to go is a really big deal. Also looking at publications that can be put out to showcase all of the things that are available, working together on that. Like I said, the online registration is huge. Emailing newsletters for reminders of upcoming registration dates. So customer experience is something that we feel will definitely be a huge benefit of us combining together. All right, so that's where we're at and where we ended with our committee. We did share also that there were, I think we got 3 public comments during the comment period. A couple of them were very favorable and one was concerned about fees. So for the most part, we didn't have overwhelming, comments that came in, but the ones that came in were fairly positive. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Mr. Merritt? Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
The recommendation is that the City Council direct staff to move forward with drafting the lease agreements and joint powers agreements necessary to merge the Recreation Department with the Parks Department.
So moved.
Alderman Pittner, motion to approve, second by Alderman Straight. Discussion on the motion. Alderman Straight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm excited. I appreciate all the hard work that you all have done. I think the community is excited about it. There are some definite questions that many folks have. I appreciate Mr. Merritt touching on the fees, and as a former softball player like yourself, sir, I don't mind paying a few bucks more for some kids to participate in programs. That seems to make sense, and I'm just real optimistic and energized by the work that you all have done, and I look forward to the next steps.
Thank you, Alderman Straight, and I'll echo that more towards the staff with the Parks Department, who's done most of the work behind the scenes in the lift. So thank you to the staff, and also to some of the other folks within the Parks Department that have worked on the other side of the coin to not only make sure that all of the issues were addressed, but very diligently going through every single point to make sure that nothing was missed in regards to the cause for concern. So thank you, guys. Alderman Wolski.
Yeah, Mayor Sitma, I appreciate the process that this has been through. I think based on what I've observed, that we have covered all the things that we can anticipate covering. I think we would all expect we're probably going to learn some things along the way as this moves forward, but hopefully we've covered the really critical things. I'm going to support this tonight. I think sort of like peanut butter and jelly, these are 2 programs that just belong together. These are natural partners, and I think that given a little bit of time, we're also going to realize some significant cost efficiencies and some operational improvements to the benefit of all of our end users, which are the taxpayers of Minot. So I think we're heading in a good direction here.
Further discussion. Alderman Pittner.
Again, thank you, Mayor. I'll just kind of echo the comments of the staff and all the work that's gone into accomplishing this and getting to this point. And like you say, I echo Alderman Wolski's comments about this just kind of going together. This is, I think, a big step even for the Recreation Department to kind of get out, maybe climb the totem pole in a different area, not competing with public health and safety in our own households. When we are kind of tightening up the belt around our budget, the first thing to go is recreational items, and I think this allows it to kind of get off of our plate, as we do have some big issues as far as maintenance and items that will be coming down the road. So I also am in favor of this, and I support this.
Further discussion. Alderman Patrugula.
My feelings on this have changed in the past couple months as a result of listening to a lot of people talking and thinking through quite intensely. I think the presentation that was made today, and I want to divide my comments into two parts. The first part is the positive and the supportive part. I think this move is very logical. It's very appropriate. It probably should have been done years, if not decades ago. My own personal preference would have been to probably have incorporated the Parks and Rec under the city. I think we have too much fragmentation of governmental entities and other kinds of organizations in the community. But I think certainly having one body, having one organization doing all of this makes perfect sense. So I will be supporting it. I do feel a sense of obligation to point out some things. And again, my stronger support for this merger, for this consolidation, is partly coming from the fact that I'm seeing some things recognized and being talked about now that I don't believe really were talked about very much or emphasized before. And there's 7 points that I want to make. The first point I want to make is that quality of life is a lot more than recreation and parks and games and things like that. I think sometimes those two have been conflated. And I think it's very important that we understand quality of life as a much larger concept. It means things like civil liberties, it means things like privacy, it means things like clean air, safe streets, streets without too many potholes, things like that. As a health psychologist, I'm very well aware of the importance of physical activity and recreation for the quality of our lives. Juvenal said it best back in the Roman era, mens sana in corpore sano. Sound mind and a sound body, and those two go very well together, and I think we need to look at both ends of it. But just a caution that quality of life is more than just recreational activities. The second point I'd like to make is that I think it's important that we pay attention to people and activities that don't just involve competition and team sports, and I'm glad to see the proposal mentioning that. It's a very competitive society in many ways, but I think there are people who choose not to be competitive and to work out and be active physically on their own, and we need to pay attention to those and make sure we have facilities and programs for them. The third point I'd like to make is that we need to pay attention to, as I think we are in this proposal, to the needs of people who are older, to the needs of people who are not particularly athletic, to people with different levels of ability, to people who have disabilities, for example. And I'm very heartened to see the emphasis on that and not just serving the young and the vigorous and the healthy who want to go out and play sports or contact sports or team sports. I think we need to be very open to people of all different backgrounds. The fourth point I'd make is that I think we need to be realistic and reasonable with our goals. Just because we certainly personally want something or think it's best for ourselves and the people who share our activities and interests doesn't mean that's necessarily best for the community. And we are and have been facing tough financial times. And I think it's critical that we distinguish between what we want and what we need. Those notions aren't rigid, they are somewhat flexible. But I think we have to be very careful about that. The fifth point I'd make is that I would ask the Park Board, if this is approved, which I think it will be and should be, is that they become more transparent and accountable. When I looked at their website, for example, the minutes were very sparse, shall we say that. We couldn't even find out how long a meeting had lasted. It was recorded when it started, but it wasn't recorded when it ended. It was also, although the Park Board members were listed there individually, they had no contact information. There was no website. They didn't have pictures or anything. Those of us on the City Council frequently get emails and phone calls from people, and I think that the Park Board members need to be equally accountable and equally accessible. So I think that'll be an issue. In the past, I think it's been done more kind of on a handshake and very informally, as our Recreation Commission has operated. And I think we need to be more structured in some ways. The sixth point I would make is that we need to be careful, and I'm very glad that Mr. Merritt said this today, because the printed handout says that these activities, these functions aren't at all in competition with other municipal functions, and I think that's misleading at best. All of these activities compete. All of the funds ultimately come from here, and I think we have to keep that in mind. And I'm uncomfortable. That's the thing that originally made me most uncomfortable, was the notion of segregating this one particular activity, sports and recreation and parks, away from all other parts of government activity. And that concerns me, and I still have some hesitation about that. And I just hope that the park board will be provident in the use of our money, because it is our money. And it was very good to hear the acknowledgement today that there is competition. There is only a certain amount of money to go around. And I think that the park board will be a little bit more challenging place to serve now when the budget is bigger and there are more people employed, and as we continue to have financial issues. But I think being honest with people is very critical. There's just one pool of money, and it comes from our pocketbooks, and we need to work out ways of spending it providently. In connection with that, I think we need to have more interaction, more liaison, more joint planning between the city government and the park district and the school system. We can't have everything we might like. The last point I would make would be in the notion of fiscal responsibility, and that is that when tough times come again, as they will, I hope the Park District will have the courage to cut back, to economize, maybe to raise revenues if they feel they are needed for their programs, as the city has done in the past several years. It's very tempting to kind of carve out something and put it all by itself. And that's not the way our community is. We're an integrated, a unified community, and we all are struggling for similar kinds of things, hopefully. So I just hope that and wish them well, and hope the park board has the courage to make tough decisions when tough times come, as we've done. It's very tempting to say that, we're going to give this priority and it's going to kind of be on its own. I'm not so sure about that. But overall, I think it is a good program. I will support it. I think it certainly makes much sense for the citizen, for the average person, for the average family in the community. And I'm glad to see that we're paying more attention to the kinds of things that I've just mentioned, because I think they really are important. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion. Alderman Wolski.
Just a brief follow-up to one of Alderman Potragula's points, which is the idea of the joint planning that I think we, as a community, need to be more engaged with. The silos that have been brought up so many different times, especially within the IEDC report, they extend up a tier, even beyond that. And I think, the joint planning idea, the idea that the park district, the school district, the county, the city, that liaison committee that we have formed that meets somewhat irregularly, I think there's going to be a lot of work cut out for it in the coming years. So.
Alderman Straight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate Alderman Potragula's points, and I guess one thought that stood out to me that I appreciate City Manager Barry and the city staff working out was just when these meetings are held. I take my parks and recreation seriously. I'm a taxpayer, and I think it's incumbent on all of us to attend those meetings, which are the third Tuesday of every month. And that's being part of the citizen democracy. You can stand up and say, you're doing a horrendous job, and I'm going to recall you, or you can stand up and fight for what you believe in. And I appreciate everybody that does that, because it's not easy work, but that's your right, just as it is your right to go. I was a very competitive individual earlier in my life, and I have no desire to revert back to that. I don't want fancy fields. I want trees and trails, simple things that don't cost a lot of taxpayer dollars. And I commend our park district, because I think they're trying to balance the rights of all the citizens, and that's why I'm incredibly encouraged and excited about the next steps, because I think it's just for the betterment of our community and the quality of life of all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion. Further discussion. Please call the roll.
Pittner?
Yes.
Potragula?
Yes.
Straight?
Yes.
Wolski?
Yes.
Sitma?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson? Yes.
Motion is approved. Takes us to number 11, the miscellaneous discussion items. 11.1 is the Community Development Grant Matching Dollars, an update on the matching requirements for the grants awarded to the Minot Park District and to Minot State University. Both entities have met the matching requirements and have submitted their documentation. City Finance Director.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, last month's meeting we had an update for the Children's Museum, and the other two entities have submitted their documentation for the matching dollars for their grants as well. Both of these agencies, the Park District and Minot State University, have provided the documentation necessary to show that they have raised the required matching contributions for the grants. So everything should be ready to go and they can move forward with their projects.
Alderman Straight to question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Lakefield, maybe for next month, if you could just provide us a little update on where we're at with what's remaining in the Community Facilities Fund. I know Alderman Olson, who chairs that committee, we had designated some money for the transfer facility, for example, for recycling. I think we had talked about trying to maybe get back together and discuss if we needed to, and maybe we just need a little refresher, if you would, sir, for us next month, please.
Certainly.
Any further questions? Thank you, sir. That is the end of our agenda. Alderman Janser.
I move we adjourn.
Motion by Alderman Janser, second by Alderman Pittner. Discussion on the motion. If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.